to rectify some of these.
Deputy Adams.
Taoiseach, myself and Brian Stanley are moving a bill for a single management agency for River Shannon later this afternoon, so I could invite the Fianna Fáil leader and the government deputies to support that when it comes around. But for now I want to raise, and I'm very sad to be raising it in the first Dáil sitting of 2016, to raise the issue of Moore Street again. And in the very first week of the centenary year of the Easter Rising, relatives of those who took part in the Rising and other activists were forced to prevent irreparable damage being done to that historic terrace of the National Monument on Moore Street by occupying buildings there. And it's damning, Taoiseach, after the long battle to save Moore Street, that the relatives have had to take legal proceedings against the Minister for Arts, Heritage and Gaeltacht in order for the work to be halted. At the last battlefield site of the most significant event in this nation's modern history, when a handful of Republican volunteers went out against the biggest empire in human history. Taoiseach, you have acknowledged this, that Moore Street is one of the most important historical and cultural locations in our country, on the island. The National Museum has described it as the most important site in modern Irish history. You yourself referred to it when you were in the opposition and took a tour as the laneways of history. And now the National Monument, the entire battlefield site, is in state ownership, but the Minister persists in carrying out a plan devised by discredited developers at Chartered Land in conjunction with the retail developers Hummerstone. Now, Taoiseach, developers should not set the agenda. The government must ensure that the historic quarter at Moore Street is redeveloped in a respectful and dignified and appropriate manner befitting its status. So, Taoiseach, will you give a commitment now to ensure that the entire battlefield site is developed as a historic quarter and that all necessary steps are taken to ensure that that happens? And I'm sure you would accept, if you consider this for a second, that this initiative, such an initiative, would be a huge economic boost to Dublin, to its inner city, particularly the north side inner city community, would be a tourist mecca, an educational hub and a fitting memorial to the men and women of 19 and 16.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Adams. Agus bíoch tá the highest egg and last freshen in Leana. Can I say to you that I went down there a few times to look at this. Obviously, the location where those who were involved in the GPO issued the final call for surrender is a historic monument. Now, this has dragged on since 1922. It's dragged on all those years. And this government decided to purchase the three dwellings, the three houses, which is now the national monument owned by the state. What you seem to be wanting is that the state would acquire everything from the corner of the GPO up as far as the rotunda, which is where the final surrender took place on the footpath opposite. Now, this is a matter for Dublin City Council. It's been bandied about for years about who should do what developer owned it, what planning permission was approved and refused and objected to, and all the rest of it. The government looked at this, said, we're approaching 2016, centenary of a seminal moment in Irish history, one of the first small countries of the 20th century to achieve its independence, and the government considered that the state should purchase the houses involved and did so. And the state want to put together a very sensitive, commemorative feature in those houses, which would be the centrepiece of the historic monument. I understand from the Minister that the house was occupied just the other night, and there quite a collection of bedding and sleeping bags and beds and so on, and donated by a charity were collected there after the people left. I'm not sure what the relevance of that was or what point was wanting to be made here. The state do not own the properties from right up along Moore Street where the O'Rahilly was shot up as far as the Rotunda. The state now own the National Monument and have responsibility for it. And the state want to do a very sensitive, authentic revising of the quality of the buildings that were there. And as you'll be aware from recent press comments and from confirmation in those press comments, the buildings on either side were either in ruins or were not authentic in previous years. So for the state and the Office of Public Works to do a very sensitive job here, in my view, is an important consideration as part of the overall contributions for the centenary of commemorations of 1916. It is a matter for the elected representatives of the City Council to deal with the yes, it is to deal with the plan that they have presented to them and the planning applications that go in for that, whether that take into account the existing laneways, the existing streets or not. That is not a function of the government. The government purchased with public money the buildings involved. The government wants with public money to do a really important, sensitive restoration on these buildings, and occupying them doesn't help that. I know that people have divided loyalties in the community down there about what should be done. The state want to fulfil its remit and its responsibility in a proper and fitting fashion.
Well, you're right, Taoiseach. This has gone on for too long. But you're wrong about everything else. You say it appears that we want the area from the GPO. We want to see a historic quarter. Carnog, Starrow, Carnog na Saoirse, a 1916 quarter. You know your history. You've walked these laneways. The garrison came out of the GPO. Among them was Michael Collins. He took over one house. 300 men, 30 women occupied the entire terrace. Elizabeth Farrell went up Moore Street and parleyed with the British at Parnell Street. The O'Rahilly was killed in one of the laneways. When the volunteers surrounded, they were taken to the garden outside the Rotunda. Tom Clark's shop is at the other side of O'Connell Street, just at the other side of Parnell Street. So we want to see all of that developed. And the community locally isn't divided upon that. And the government are the custodians of national monuments. So you clearly have the power and the authority to do this. What's lacking is the political will. So I want to put it to you again. Yes, successive governments have failed in this. I couldn't imagine any other state in the world that this would be happening. Can't imagine it. Go to any state, whatever you think about the political complexion or the leaderships of these states, it wouldn't happen. So I would appeal to you, Taoiseach, as this is your last few weeks as Taoiseach, as outgoing Taoiseach, I would appeal to you to use the authority you have and to intervene. Also, if I may just remind you, we've yet to achieve our independence.
Thank you.
Our nation is still divided. Partition is still a fact. And we have a peaceful and democratic way to work that out now, and all of us should be doing that. But this issue should be above party politics. This entire Oireachtas should be united in ensuring that the type of appropriate freedom or 1916 quarter is developed. We don't want a commemorative shopping mall, Taoiseach. That's the last thing that we want.
Thank you.
Well, I think that your party, with respect, doesn't want to associate itself with the national commemorative ceremonies that are going on. You seem to be wanting to have your own issues, and that's your own business. But I would say this to you, Deputy Adams: the state, with public money, have invested in the provision of the military archives, have invested in the transformation of the mezzanine in the General Post Office, have invested in the in the courthouse in Kilmainham, invested in Richmond Barracks and in the tenement buildings, and also purchased this national monument. I don't think the authority and may well be a danger to themselves given the fragility of some of the buildings there. I said to you before, the reason that people had to burrow through the gables of the houses to get to 15, 16, 17 was because of the machine gun on the top of the rotunda, and they couldn't use Moore Street. The O'Reilly was shot, and his memory is enshrined on the wall there, as you're well aware. So the issue is, Deputy Adams, do you agree that it's a right and proper thing for the state, the national government of Ireland, to have purchased this, to have purchased these dwellings here, and to transform them into an authentic restoration of the place where the leaders of the 1916 rising from the GPO had tunnelled and burrowed through as far as before Elizabeth Farrell went to deliver the surrender on the footpath opposite the rotunda. I think it is. I think it's part of the commemorative centenary celebrations, which are sensitive, inclusive, open to everybody. You don't seem to want that. You may have purposes of your own. The state does not own the other properties, and the state does not have the authority to say these are the buildings and the kind of developments we want here. That's a matter for representatives, including your own, to participate in that discussion, so that that kind of development can take place in the locality of the state monument here at 15, 16, 17.
Deputy Healy, thank you.